Next fish.
Hey, what's up, you guys? We're just gonna do a quick session here with a little bit of sketching. I have a couple of stuff to finalize here tonight, so I might as well stream it live as always. And we're going to focus on a couple of sketches I got to do for the blacksmith, actually. So get that down on the page and see how things just come out. The pens I'm using right now are going to be focusing on just regular white paper. Honestly, this is a bit of a cover stock, a little bit heavier, probably about an 80-pound paper. I just got it at a local print shop. It's not any kind of special art paper actually, so a lot of times I just like to sketch on just paper of any type, even like printer paper. Beyond that, I also just have my little sorry, I'm just looking at the chat system right now at the moment. Also looking at these Pigma FB brush pens. These are made by Sakura. So I just wanted to spend a bit of time using these again, and I've been doing a number of sketches already, which have just been a collection coming from stuff for the blacksmith. So just series and series of drawings of the blacksmith over and over again. So I got to do about another 4 or 5 of these. This is for the Kickstarter backers. So these will be going into individual books as a part of the sales. So I just need to do a couple more. And of course, if anybody does have any questions, I am replying mostly to my live stream on Twitch. For those of you that are watching on Instagram, if you guys want to jump over onto there to ask a question, you're more than welcome to. You obviously don't have to subscribe. I'm just saying that you can watch it on there to ask and interact for a question on that side. Due to the fact that on Instagram side of it, I can't necessarily see the camera from the angle I'm pointing at, so I can't really see what you guys are saying. As I'm drawing, I can't just like peek over every now and again. But in any case, let's just start sketching some things out. Usually when I'm starting to begin with the blacksmith character that I have, and this character is something that I created years ago, I'm thinking in my head, visualizing first, foremost of like angle a camera. Like where do I want to position the camera is what I'm kind of thinking of at first. And as I do so, you know, a lot of the shots I've been doing previous have been like down angle views where I'm looking, well not down angle, up angle views when I'm up looking at the character. I might even try to switch it up to like more front views, side views, down angle shots. So the character doesn't really change way too much in terms of just being, you know, a standard pose. It's just more of a sense of like how I'm moving the camera around the character, because these are supposed to be quick sketches and nothing way too prolific in any type. So I'll do something similar that I've done prior, which, you know, I don't mind repeating some of the sketches to some degree. I'll make minor changes here and there. But then, again, this is the character of the blacksmith that I created a while back, so I'm so familiar to drawing this character that I don't necessarily have to really think about how to draw a character. I'm so familiar to the individual's design, features, elements, nuances, that I can just go in there and start just sketching things out without any real hesitation. And being able to stay consistent on model to then, you know, the character's features, the elements, the costuming, clothing, whatever the case is. So we're just doing a slight upshot again. This time I have his arm coming up with the weapon coming out this direction aside. So again, this is just me kind of playing with sketching of a character that I'm very familiar with. And the setup is mostly online first, and then I'll start going in there with a little bit more detailed information using more of a dry brush technique. Hopefully the sound is not way too noisy or buzzy. I have a lot of fans and AC going on because it's so warm right now in LA. So I do apologize if the noise is quite distracting. But I'd rather be cool than sweating my balls off and trying to talk with you guys. A couple questions are coming in from Twitch at the moment. Do you think perspective is worth studying? I'm assuming that's a yes or no question. Do you think it is wise spending a lot of time studying perspective today, since there's many 3D tools available? Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'm not saying that you can't, bypass that and go to 3D and be a 3D artist if you're going to do that. Yes, the computer will have the ability to have you, use a camera to position it to get the perspective that's accurate to three-dimensional space. But if you're going to visualize in any way, especially even like certain art techniques like composition, you need to train your artist's eye. And to do that, I think training in some of the traditional means of techniques are incredibly important. I'm not saying that you should master it per se, because none of those things are really achievable at a mastering level. You're always a student, you're always trying to learn them. But I think you should at least understand the base generalities of things, understand like things like the terminology, the build up, the actual use of it, where it can be applied, where it can also be plugged into your process and pipeline. It may not be used to a degree of level that you may think or assume or may know at the moment, but you never know really until you actually experience it fully. So I say 100% yes. Places that I recommend, I would look at like Brainstorm School online. They do a great perspective boot camp. Look at an artist instructor named Eric Ng, Eric NG. Great instructor for perspective. A couple cool places like at CGMA teaches perspective as well. Can you learn it by yourself? Sure, but I think having a guide for that is really important. What is the best way for a line to show structure and gesture? Well, structure, think of it like kind of the analogy between two things like um, architecture and gesture being more based on movement. So structural things, you're actually building it, right? Building it with lines. So giving it whether like more three-dimensional form, whether it's like planes, top, front, side, plane kind of stuff, where the gesture is more based on the movement, the flow, the action um, of any type of anything. But it could be even a human being to an animal, even like something mechanical. Gesture applies to all subject matters, but the application can be a little bit different. Where does gesture is still gesture like a structure? In a way, it gives you like an initial beginnings, foundations to be able to build a structure on top of, because a gesture then gives you the sense of motion, movement, all that stuff. But you do need structure to give yourself a stronger sense of proportion, three-dimensional form, or things like perspective. So, but in terms of best way to show line for that, depends on the tool. Some people like to use certain expressive tools like brush pens, kind of like what I'm using right now. The Pigma brush pen has a lot more variance in terms of like thick and thin lines. It's a bit more easier to manipulate. People like pencils because you can be softer and lighter with it. Certain felt tip pens are a bit more difficult to use for some people because the line is so constant. But like I said, it depends on the individual and how you train and what you use. A couple of questions. What was your favorite thing to draw as a child? Dinosaurs. Love drawing dinosaurs. Simple as that. I still love drawing dinosaurs. I think I had a question from Instagram. I just saw it real briefly. It was the instructor for perspective is Eric Ng, NG, over at Brainstorm School online. Well, actually, I don't know if he's there anymore. He might be on his own. He might only be teaching at some other schools. I'm not really quite sure anymore. Uh, the faculty and also the listing of artists are constantly fluctuating in all these schools. Some people are on, some people are off. He might be off at the moment. I'm not sure. Am I a Twitch partner? No, I'm not. I'm going through Marshall Vandra's Perspective series. Jeff, excellent. It's a great series also. I recommend. It is older. I think it's from like the 1990s and something like that. So Marshall was much younger. However, Marshall is an incredible instructor. Also a very good lecturer. He knows his material very, very well, and I would highly recommend it. And it's also extremely affordable. Marshall Vandra. Let's see. What's your biggest inspiration or artist that you look up to the most? And for me, it's several. A lot of people, obviously coming from more historical, master classical artists, some from the 1800s, like American illustrators, comic artists, graphic novelists, tons of different people. Not just only illustrators and entertainment people, but also artists that are working in, let's say, sculpture or things like animation. Even it could be things like in, I don't know, fine print, illustration kind of stuff, advertising, industrial design, different areas of design in general, right? Whether it's like fashion, whatever the case is. But if there was to name one single person, people ask me, it's like, who's your main visual inspiration? when I was younger, like at art center, when I was younger, like my mid early 20s or so, the artist I would copy probably the most in terms of imitation was Terada, Katsuya Terada. I liked his aesthetic, his line, his compositions, his information of tech, how he drew certain characters, just everything appealed to me. So I used to mimic him quite a bit in my late teens, early 20s, and of course I then kind of figured out exactly what I liked about him so much, which I was able to extract the information I wanted to move on. Not to say I don't look at Terada's work still, I do. It's just that obviously I don't copy stuff anymore. So you have any tips for learning to draw heads and faces? I think the best starting points are going to be within breaking down general understanding proportion, understanding a certain measurement system, how to locate things like anchor points, certain bone structures. So starting with the skull is probably your best bet, but don't just draw the skull, draw forms that represent skulls. So that could be things like what primitive forms that you find out. You can look for even things like, resin casts and models, 3D models as well too. If you go to a place like sketchfab.com. They have 3D models that are uploaded by people, and you can actually look up things like human skulls or plano heads and draw from those in 3 dimensions as well. Of course, looking at books, a lot of anatomy books or even just basic fundamental drawing books are great if you're not going to take a class. If you take a class, there's obviously a lot of opportunities, but if you're going to go on your own, use all the resources online and books as you can. You can't draw hands. Any advice? Well, can you draw them very simply? Right? Is a question. And what do I mean by very simply? Well, how simple can you make it? Well, first and foremost, whether you make it simple or not, do you understand how to proportion them properly? What are some of the proportions from the palm to the fingers? Do you understand the bone structure where things kind of sit from the knuckles and how they arc? You can draw from the top to the bottom first, just to get a sense of the general proportion. Look at your own hand if you want. Take photographs and do a lot of studies. From there, like I said, break down primitives. Is there a box? Is there another box? Don't look at the individual fingers. Look at them as big constructive forms. So don't push it beyond your understanding or your capability. Go for something as simple as possible. And you might think, well, I feel like I should be pushing myself harder. Well, the question is, are you able to even deconstruct a hand, something down to its most primitive? And actually is very difficult to do. And from there, then you move forward. What are some good ways to get drawing ideas when you're sitting there clueless looking at a blank page? Well, don't look at a blank page. Look at something that might give you the inspiration. Watch a movie, play some games, read a book. Obviously, we can't go out on location right now, outside, but I would normally go to things like museums, gardens, or different places to just look for stuff, bookstores, shops, things I'd just be interested in, looking at. And I basically let my eyes not really unfocus, but let them be distracted. Let them get attracted to things that could be there spontaneously. So being on, outside is going to be one of the beneficial parts. But right now you can't really do that. So, like I said, look for other out avenues of inspiration where it might feed you something that you might be interested in doing. What that is, I can't tell you. What you are gravitated towards and what you won't feel like is interesting to you is based on your decision and your taste. So, and you might think, well, I don't want to just draw the same thing I've done before. Well, maybe you start there first, right? Some people say, I can't just get started. Well, start with something that is really familiar initially. You might think, but I've drawn that so many times. Well, draw it again. That might get that ball rolling so that way you can start moving on and draw something that's a bit more challenging. Draw something comfortable initially, then get comfortable. Or comforted into drawing something more unexpected or more difficult. I mean, you could be saying, I don't know what to draw right now. And I'm talking to you and I'm watching this. Well, maybe you should draw right now. Maybe somebody can give you an idea. Maybe somebody can like throw out a theme. Hey, we should be all drawing this. I could tell you, we draw a dragon. Any kind of dragon. I don't care. There you go. Now sketch. If you're not sketching now, what are you doing? You're just watching? That's fine. You can watch. But you might use this hour and a half, 2 hours to get a couple of drawings in. King Cobra, nice. I know you're doing what you love by working freelance, but in this day and age where everything is about efficiency and money more than the art itself, if you had unlimited choice, what would you want to work for? Myself, still. If I had unlimited money, or I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Oh yeah, yeah. If I had a limited choice, what would I still work on? Well, it's still for me because I could be working for a studio, a company, in all these different places, and I've worked for many studios. 7 years working in video game studios, worked over at Sony, worked over at a place called Tryon, Bottle Rocket, Technicolor, all these different places over the past 7 years of, my life. And would I be interested in going back into a studio? I'm not saying no, but I'm not saying yes either. Everything is yes based on opportunity, based on the project. But at the moment, if it was my choice ultimately, it'd be working for myself, working on things that I want to work on, and getting paid to do it. By the way, for those of you that are joining in right now, this is a character that I made up a number of years ago. We're just doing a sketch based on a number of loose sketches I had to do for my Kickstarter series backers. These will be going inside printed books, these originals, and this is a character called the Blacksmith, which I made up for my graphic novel. So we're just going to do a couple of just simple medium shots, portrait shots, different angles of views. So it's not like some random character. This is a character that I designed quite a bit ago. Quick question, I'm learning figure drawing first. Will this help in learning animal drawing, vice versa? If you are able to open your eyes to see the world in a way in which you can find patterns and rhythms, then yes. If you focus on compartmentalizing and isolating individual categories, then no. If you said, I am drawing a human being and I'm now going to draw an animal, and you think of them as completely different things, where most common people would. Oh, that's a giraffe. It has nothing to do with the human being. Well, physically, you're right. They are completely separate things. But mentally, in terms of approach and how you visualize it, you can find a lot of similar techniques that bridge over. So that's similar to the kind of classes that I teach, which is about opening your eyes and how you view the world. You can then also find them in everyday objects, even man-made objects, engineered stuff, structural things, as you combine them with organic things. So for me, it very much applies in that way. How I draw a human can be very much similar in how I draw the cat. Structurally, proportionally, anatomy-wise, they're different, but in terms of how I approach it mentally, it'd be very similar. Glad you got the book from Norn's book. Thanks for the support, Gary Carmine. Looking forward to get the black and white copy. Cool, Jeff. I'm also going to send you the color copy of the digital. So all people who back the books will get the digital files, both black and white and color, because of how late it was. So I felt bad about that. So I felt like I should do something about that. What company did you enjoy working with the most and why? It was a company called Bottle Rocket Studios in San Diego. We were making a game called Splatterhouse. It was a remake of an old side scroller game. And I enjoyed it because it was so open and creative. A little bit too loose, maybe. We were kind of like left to our own devices to just do what we wanted. So some days were not as productive as others, so which is why we kind of lagged on our production schedules. And ultimately, which is why the company kind of failed. But at the same time, as an employee there, it was quite fun. It's great to take 2 hour lunches and go play volleyball at the beach and stuff like that. Let's see. Sorry, I think I missed a couple of things. Blunt pencil. What's the most recent thing you completed that I can buy to support you? Well, I appreciate you wanting to support, and I would love to give you some sort of link or access to a product or something right now. But unfortunately, at the moment, a lot of the stuff I have been creating are either in process to reprint again, or I have new things that are coming out, and they will be coming out by fall or winter of this year. So I have a new book, the educational book that talks a lot about the stuff I'm mentioning now, about how we view the world around us, and that will be available through the Superani group, probably at the fall time. I would say. I'm not sure. There's no exact date just yet. I'm in the process of finalizing the final cover just at the moment. The book is done, but printing wise, we still got to go through it. It's getting there though. Getting there. The Blacksmith. This comic is finished. The prints are coming in tomorrow for me. So the books are coming in tomorrow. My distributor is going to get them. They already got them, so they're going to start shipping them out probably very soon. Once I finish up these sketches, finish up some prints, I'm going to send them over and I'm going to pack them up and then send them out from there too. I'm hoping in the next week or so, these will be, next week or two, they'll be sent out. But in terms of the graphic novel being available anywhere else, at the moment it's going to be probably until fall, where once people start getting in hand, I'll probably wait a little bit so that way the backers will get them earlier and sooner. From there, I might have it available through my own Shopify channel and web store, but it might only be domestic at the moment because I don't have anybody international to distribute it for me, unfortunately. And I only made a couple, just a very short amount of copies extra beyond the Kickstarter account. So there aren't that many copies at the moment. We'll see what happens. We'll see. If you could relearn how to draw, how would you approach it? What would you start drawing first? Honestly, I wouldn't change it. I think the way I approached it was something that I feel has worked the best for me, which is a combination of many variables. I know how lucky I am. I've mentioned it to many students beforehand about the idea of how I started. Meeting those right people, being in the right environment, having the right support system, having the sense of encouragement, but then also the drive of wanting to just do it more. So it doesn't really matter where and how, or not really how, but what I started with for drawing. The fact of the matter is I was able and given the opportunity to just draw whatever it is I wanted to do. So I think I had honestly the best opportunity given. Could there have been things to excel me further? Sure. I think a lot of it could have been from, at the time when I was in college and how much of the education I took advantage of. I was in my early teens and stuff like that. It was hard to focus, and finding definite interests were there, but I was very much interested in specific things where I should have really opened up my gamut more. But at the same time, that's just the way it was. So that's really the only thing I would say I would go back and maybe give advice to. But I wouldn't necessarily change anything else from like my childhood and like that, because I think I got enough support to just keep going. What do you think is the best school in the Los Angeles area that will prepare you to be a character in Creature Concept Daughters? There is no best school. No one school is the best in being able to prepare you to go work in any field. It's just one school is the beginning points of helping you discover more of who you are, right? Well, based on their curriculum, based on their system and platforms, based on the faculty, based on this, all that other stuff. So there's no one school I can say that's going to give you that. But then the question is, well, what do I do? Where do I start? I think in my opinion, it's not really even about settling into one school. I think at the moment it's about being able to take advantage of all these different opportunities and platforms of schools that are now widely available everywhere. Even in just the LA area, we have so many schools around us. There's a Concept Design Academy, there's a Brainstorm School, yes there is Art Center, yes there is Otis, yes there's LCAD, and all these different places. And you might think, well, if I go to the schools, I'm full time. But that doesn't mean you have to finish. Maybe go to a certain amount of time, get the information that you need, and leave. You don't need a degree. And I never say you will. But going to those places at the earlier beginnings to gain discipline is a great place to start. From there, then you can maybe go to the places like Brainstorm or CDA or CGMA, schoolism as well too, to get the extra intermediate to advanced education, to get ready for your portfolio to start working. So the portfolio and the work is what matters the most, not about the degree or the school that you went to. Yeah, absolutely. And the student loans can be quite troubling. But again, like I said, you don't have to finish. Get as much as you can out of it. In the short amount of time you might want to stay. And if you don't go, then you don't go. Are there things that you might miss out? Potentially. In any situation, there's always something to gain from. But you can't hit everything equally, and you can't experience every single thing you want to either. So you just have to make a choice and decision, and hope for the fact that what you've made a decision on is the right risk. And at the end of the day, that's the only thing you have to make sure you have comfort in, is the fact that you made the choice. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, you adapt, right? But there's no regrets at that point. You tried and you found out. Now you know. Not a problem, Ali. Thanks for joining in today again. Are you going to reprint the Dynamic Bible? I don't know yet. The new one's coming out hopefully by the end of summer towards early fall. The reprint of the old one, I want to because it's a good overall general book. It gives you the information generally as an overview. The new book is more specific to just a couple of specific subject matters. So I want to go back and reprint them if I can. It'll depend on money. Do I get a lot of sleep? Yeah, when I want to. Someday, if I'm working like school and classes and stuff like that, I average maybe like 5 or 6 hours a night. I'm a late night person anyway, so. By the way, for anybody that's on Instagram listening in, same thing. If you're watching, if you want to ask questions, you're welcome to jump onto Twitch and ask questions there. These streams will always be free as I'm streaming them live. Instagram is being just shared right now, just to let people know that it's happening. But unfortunately, I can't reply to both sides at the moment. If I had a moderator, then maybe that'd be helpful. But just doing it by myself, I'm trying to focus on drawing and one platform to ask and or not, but to answer questions. What age did you start drawing seriously? What do you mean by seriously? You mean like working, or like going to school, or just like completely invested into it? I mean, when I first started drawing was at the age of 5. Was I drawing practically every day? Since that age, I was. Um, I'm sorry to hear that. You must have been using it like crazy. I've had a couple of books that they haven't really fallen apart on me. I've had them in like high heat, left them in my car. I haven't had any problems. But if you're opening and closing it and using it quite a bit, I'm pretty sure there's going to be a couple of small things. But unfortunately, that's bad to hear about that. So I'll have to talk to my printers, and if I do go into them again, maybe there's a way to strengthen it. I would recommend if your cover glue peeled off, what you'd want to use is a glue called PVC glue. PVC, and it's a book glue. And all you got to do is reapply it to the spine area where the cover was, let it dry overnight, and it'll hold it strong and flexible again. So PVC glue is the main glue you use in bookbinding. So where am I are you going to be able to get the new book? Well, Superani is the place producing it, so it'll be under their channels, and they'll announce it, and you'll find out websites or where you can get it from then. What do you think about the book Framed Ink? It's awesome. I think it's fantastic. I would highly recommend it. Great within things like composition. Obviously things like it's more for storyboarding if anything else, and graphic novel storytelling. I don't know if it's good for like basic 101 drawing per se, but it does have a lot of great information. I want to move on to another sketch. I just wanted to finish up this one. Let's just sign that real quickly. This goes into the pile of many that I have. So